All right, it is 5:04, so we're gonna get started on the meeting order. And we here are the Brookline Building Use Workgroup. And we'll start by introducing ourselves. My name is Mary Hickey. I live at 60 Sunny Lane. I am a retired journalist. I'm a grandma. And I'm approaching this as a journalist, looking for information, listening, researching, and trying to learn as much as we can to share with the town whatever we find. And we're very eager to hear everybody's thoughts. And that's what this meeting is about, listening. So that's me.
I'm Fred Strasser. I also live at 60 Sunny Lanes. I'm also a retired journalist. And I've been around that long and I'm very eager what this community has to say about this, of which I am glad to be a part. I think it's great to see so many people so involved and so taking such democratic it's great.
I'm Andrea Seaton. My husband Mike is in the back row there next to Johnny Swing, and I moved to 793 Grassy Brook Road in October. And we're thrilled to be Brookline residents after having lived in Eastover and raised our kids there for 30 years. And our kids went to Leland and Gray, and I was in charge of fundraising, public relations, and marketing at Gray's Cottage for 28 years. So I know you that way.
I'm Stan Noga. I live at 65 Sunny Lane, next door neighbor to the other two people involved here. And I've been in town since 1989. Have a somewhat of a familiarity with the town. I've had the pleasure of serving the citizens in other capacities and appreciate your support. And I'm here to support the rest of the group in the efforts involved. And I think we've done a pretty decent job of trying to get you some info on scenarios that are potential, and pleasure to be here.
My name is Lyle Brooks. I don't live on Sunny Lane. I live at a community farm, lifelong resident, went to elementary school in this building. And just as a lifelong resident, thought this committee would be a good start for me to start getting more involved with the town. So and just here to listen and talk through some ideas. So.
Jess.
Oh, I'm Jess. I live at the West River Inn / Lodge, whatever era you're from. And this is my first time participating in small town politics, and it's very exciting and it's a lot. I'm learning a lot, but I'm really truly just really excited to see what kind of information we can come up with and what as a community we decide to do. I'm just so excited. Yeah.
Oh, hi, I'm Emily. I'm on the select board. I'm just doing the Zoom. This is their show.
Zoom.
Do you want to
Go around.
Mike?
Well, you're
Yeah, I'm Mike Socio for the select board, but Emily and I have been, we brought together, we wanted to seek volunteers primarily who maybe you've been in town a long time, maybe you haven't, but maybe you haven't been involved in a lot of town government. So we other than Stan, who's the veteran anchor here, they're really kind of new to town processes and so forth. So Emily and I have kind of been trying to help everybody get up to speed as soon as possible and be as productive as possible in their work by navigating the way town meetings happen and that kind of stuff. So we're supporting this group.
And if anyone hasn't gotten a sign-in sheet, please let's send it back.
And also there's information sheets at the back that everyone should grab if you haven't already. So we just have a couple little items, or one little item of business, approving the draft minutes from our last meeting. Motion to move that approved. Second. All in favor?
I would like to add some things from my portion of the report. Jess does a wonderful job, as does Vanessa. It's a long, tedious process, and I've done the minutes myself, and sometimes you're just in trouble getting something right and you miss the next time thing or two on the list, so, this is. And Jess has been fantastic. I don't want this to reflect negatively at all. That's not my intent. I just want to make sure that I get what, happened in my mouth and my hand. So, I'd like to amend item, I forget what item it is that, involved my presentation. And how it was also. Guess it was item number 6, Stan's report. I'd just like to add to that, the fact that, I had handed out market data on land sales in this town and surrounding towns going back to this in 2020 as an aid in allowing the committee to understand what lot values might be should the town take a course that involves selling the school and or taking a part of land off of it to gauge some kind of value, to give numbers that people might look at to make a determination. So that's one item. I then submitted a Microsoft Word document on highest and best use as it applied to how any building that the town might put up for sale could be enhanced in terms of providing a greater return to the citizens of the town. I also telephoned the developer of the South Newfane Church and tried to get an idea of why they chose the route that they did, and how they viewed that process. And then I also then contacted the buyer and seller of a property in Vernon that had been a restaurant and a store to get a sense from both of them what their motivation was for the transaction, what their motivation was for value, and to better serve background information again for possible options here. I guess those are the 4 things I'd like to add to the list that I've had. And with that amendment.
All in favor? Second, action item, we need a motion to turn the meeting over to moderator David Parker.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I'm David Parker. I don't live in Sunny Lake. You know it. Yeah, I'd like to keep this, and I think the group would too, keep this as informal as possible. My understanding, looking at the agenda, is they're going to do a brief presentation as to what they have found, what they've been up to. They're not here to give the sales pitch. And then conversely, you will be free after that to ask questions, make comments, bring forth any information that you'd like to share with them. So basically just a large exchange of information. So one would hope that if you have a question or something you'd like to say, raise your hand at that point. I'll call on you and try to know who's next and get an order to go. And we'll go from there.
Well, so we introduced ourselves. I think I put that twice in the minutes. Apologies for that. The sheet that I've handed out is something we all worked on. It's an overview of what we've been doing so far. Our assignment from the select board is pretty straightforward. Gather information on the building, the school building and the town building, develop possible scenarios. And we brainstormed a lot and came up with a gazillion different permutations of ideas. Then sort of narrowed it down, which we'll get to in a few minutes. Then to provide financial models, what is this going to mean? You know, if we do this, how much will it cost? If we do this, how much it will save us? So try to assess as best we can what the financial impact will be. We also have been charged with hosting 2 townwide discussions and summarizing the input that we hear. This is the first of the 2. Then finally, we are going to create a report based on what we find and submit it to the select board. Our group is not a decision-making group in any way, shape, or form. We're not a recommendation-making group. We are simply a fact-finding group. And so that's what we're trying to do. Learn as much as we can, consider every option possible. So we started looking at what are the things that we have to consider. Does the town need or want a larger town office? How difficult or easy would it be to sell this building, or conversely to sell the town hall? What are the costs and benefits of selling or not selling? What would be gained sort of monetarily, but also sort of just in general, what would the community gain from selling, or conversely, what would the community lose by selling? What alternative use is there for each of these buildings? What other possibilities? So what could you do with the property and the space? And then finally, the cost and impact, which is where we're at. We've narrowed it down to 4 main options. One is sort of do nothing, leave with status quo for now, see what happens, see how markets change, what might come up. Another one would be to move the town office from down the road to this building and sell the town office building. Another one would be to rent this building, to seek a tenant, a preferred tenant, somebody that everybody would be happy with, to use this building as a rental, with the town potentially managing that as a rental property. And finally, to sell this building as, to an acceptable buyer that everyone feels good about, and keeping the town office where it is. So those are the 4 scenarios that we have begun to examine. I don't want to go through this whole list of what we've done, but we've done a lot. I mean, we've reached out, Stan has been super amazing about getting us information on the listings and the property values and the history of the building. We've met with realtors to talk about the potential of selling or renting either building. Jess has met with contractors to talk about the cost of renovating buildings. We're looking into the cost of moving the town vault. We've connected with some nonprofit groups who have worked in other communities. There are many communities around the state that are dealing with identical issues. And in many of them, a very common scenario is that the citizens form a nonprofit group, get the building from the town, and then the citizens kind of spearhead turning it into a community center or a daycare center or they're all listed in this sheet that I've passed along, and getting grant money, which is a fairly complicated and arduous process, but there is grant money out there for various options. Most of it for nonprofits that sort of demonstrate a commitment, either financially or have committees that show that these citizens are willing to take this over. We talked to the family that gave the town office, and asked about the easement. There's an easement issue there. And somebody else might be able to explain that better than I can. But basically, this family is not willing to relinquish the easement. They have their reasons. They own land in back of the building. So that obviously would affect the ability to sell the building or the price of the building. We've talked to daycare people in the daycare community about possible daycare use of the building. We're doing a lot, and we're kind of going down every little path that seems viable, and sometimes it makes sense, and sometimes like, oh, well, this is not going to work for us. And then finally, we're beginning to develop these financial models, which we're hoping to really nail down as best we can. So, guys, am I missing anything? What else have we done? But we're still in the information gathering phase. We're not really ready to present a full report of any kind. And what we want to hear is, this is the town. What do you guys think should be done? what are the priorities, what shouldn't be done, what are, whatever. So with that, back to you, David.
Seems clear to me. So, yeah, who would like to be first?
Can you can someone explain the easement and what it allows or does not allow to be done with
But-
the town?
Before we go further, I just, if you recognize to speak, just if you could say your name, so that
Yes.
everybody knows who you are,
Okay.
being recorded too.
Lori now Martucci.
There we go, good.
At the time the property was donated to, the town, the, donators retained a 25-foot wide easement to access the property behind the lot that they were giving to the town. They owned a total of 180 acres. And they have another way of going north of the Grassy Brook, but they wanted a more direct shot because it is 180 acres and it does go quite a ways down the mountain behind the town office. So they retained a right, an easement, to have access to that if they're choosing to simply go across the property. Now, that easement, if you're standing at the round schoolhouse looking at the town office, you'll note there's a line of stone, a stone wall on the south side of the town office property. It appears that that easement goes from that stone wall 25 feet toward the town office. So a short distance between the entry door to the town office is kind of where that easement ends. So, you know, I guess
You could lose that parking.
well, if they want to use it at that time, somebody's gonna move their car. That's what it appears to me. And the select board members here were kind enough to approach family members, and as was said, they are not interested in relinquishing that. So it does kind of present a little bit of a problem should the citizens decide you want to market that to get something back, should we move to this building? And I guess probably the most important question is if someone put an easement on your property that you currently have, and it's about 10 feet from your front door, but you think very highly about buying that property. So it is a concern.
And how much is acreage is on the other side, the north side of the building?
Well, the whole lot is approximately an acre, so
And is it in floodplain?
none of it is formally in a flood.
The septic system is on the other side.
The septic system is away opposite, about on the north side, on near the stream, but I believe it's within the guidelines the state has mandated for a distance, the buffer zone.
So Alyssa first and then Mike. Yep.
Alyssa Schmidt. So could you stand up, please? Okay.
You're right.
Do you have a copy of the easement that I could look at?
I'd be happy to email it to you. It's also in the town office in the land records.
Okay,
I was from Goal to the town of Brookline, book 16, pages 13, 14, and 15.
wow. Yeah.
So, Mike, you're Mike Satan.
So what does it cost the town right now to run this building without a tenants? And then if we were to sell it, potentially what type of taxes will be generated from the building? So
So we're modeling all that.
okay.
We have some of those numbers. At the moment, until we refine the numbers a little further, we're going slow with putting them out there, because once you put a number out there, it's cast in stone. So we have numbers for those, and this is not the purpose of this meeting. It's more to hear what people want to do. Because I'm afraid if I start putting numbers out there, then without putting all the numbers out there, it's.
We're just saying it might help people if they knew what it was costing us now to keep this building, so potentially, you must have that.
Yeah, what it's costing us now is probably, we originally budgeted about $15,000 to keep this building in a kind of a semi mothball state. And it's costing us more than that.
Annually.
And annually, yeah, the numbers are big, so annually, so right now, we're estimating to be in the low 20s, 21,000. If we just did nothing and kept this building as it is, that's a pretty solid number estimate.
Thanks, Mike.
Margaret?
Margaret Carasona. How many acres are here for the schools? There's little question on that right now. We've been assuming it's 6.81 acres. But, there are some discrepancies with the tax map. When I logged on to ANRG, the Vermont GIS site, it showed some weird, drawing outline of where the town property is. It's not containing this part of the school, it's containing the other part, and it's not, and there's an extension that's supposedly, I should say, an easement. It was done, back early, that expires in, I think it is 2045. It's a 50-foot wide easement that goes from the road all the way back to the river. And you look at where the surveyor put that, it goes right through this part of the school. So the person at Cartographics in Brattleboro, when the lister sent a copy of the survey, they left that out of the drawing. So although it says 6.81, there could be an acre that's maybe attributable to that total, bringing it to approximately 7.74 acres. So there's a little ambiguity there.
Barbara and then Gary.
So, does that include the ball field down? Or is it
Yes.
it doesn't,
It does include the ball field.
because that's a separate piece, isn't it? Wasn't that was given from the weather wolves over here as a town piece? And
I believe it was. But there's the next lot where the playground is, that was a separate lot. There's a requirement on that, but now that the town owns it all, we can straighten it out. So whatever we do will simplify things in the future. But yes, that parcel is a part of the 6.8 acres. I believe the playground is approximately another acre. And again, the 50-foot by however long this easement is another parcel. The Weatherlow parcel also contains the area behind the meeting house. It goes down to the next property, which, Rinks, thank you. It goes down that far, so I don't know if that answers the question.
right. So Stan, it's the ball field down here past the stone wall.
Yes.
And it wraps the Weatherlows when they gifted that to the town, it goes behind this property to the church.
Past the church,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And there was a second deed, another deed from another person that contains the playground out here.
Uh-huh.
But I believe this lot, which is not part of the easement, is also part of the Weatherlow lot that you're referring to.
Gary Livornia, we live in northern Brookline where not many people go, but. We're not planning to move to Summer Lane. Yeah, it's full. The easement, it's confusing for me for this building. Who has the easement?
What, I made a mistake. I gotta clarify. Thank you, Gary. You actually subtly pointed out. It's not an easement, it's leased land. And it expires, I believe it is, 2045.
So who are we leasing from?
Well, originally it was leased from the church that owned the now meeting house. They leased it,
Sure.
no fee, just.
Yeah.
They leased it, so it has an expiration date, but the comforting part, as Mike has mentioned at one time or two, is that the town now owns it all. So you can dissolve the lease, free that issue up. You can dissolve the requirement that the playground out here is supposed to have a fence all the way around it, which it doesn't. And I think we've got a shared well with so you have to, you want to maintain that or not?
Well, there's no penalty for doing the easement. I mean, it doesn't revert back to the original landowners.
It would revert back to the original, yeah, if you wanted to take that route, yeah.
I mean, who is that?
Well, right now it's the town. Original in terms of deed, if you deed property to the next person, that person gets the easements that are associated with that deed. So it's all been done legally, orderly, so the town now is the ownership of the leased land It's leased to the, what was the school department for the town of Brookline, but now, because of the most recent deed, is to the town of Brookline.
Here, what's free and clear.
Which you voted on back in 2014.
It's moot.
Yeah, it's moot. The moot, but it's an interesting question.
Okay, Dan, and then Melissa.
Sure.
Just a point of fact or information, this building shares a well with the church property, right?
Yes,
Not only that, must be adequate to supply the water that was used when this building was used. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes.
And what sort of septic does this building have or this property?
It was originally designed for 95 students. When Sunny Lane Daycare took it over, they installed a kitchen over here, and that required a restrap. They reapplied to A&R for a permit to operate it with 55, I'm sorry, with a number of students, said, how many can we have here? The state wrote back and said, it's good for 55 students. So now it's 55 students.
Because of the sink or because of the.
Yeah, there was a stove, they had grease and so forth, so, yeah.
What is the date of the septic system that's serves this, you know, and does it conform to whatever the state presently?
Well, they gave the permit, so it does comply, it does comply.
Yeah,
They wouldn't have,
Yeah.
if they felt it wasn't, they would have made some changes.
if, actually a corollary question, I guess, if the building's use changed from what it was, would that require an upgrade of some sort?
I've looked into that, it does require another application identifying the change. I've gone online through A&R's website and looked at 2 other properties that have gone through changes from either a church or the one in Vernon that was a store. Because it was a store with a snack bar restaurant, they had a pretty good number of gallons they could pump into the septic system because of that. And in the one in South Newfane, it was a church and it had a reasonable sized, for a very small half-acre lot, good sized septic system there. In both cases, when the developers applied to A&R looked at the capacity under the prior system and gave both applicants an okay on it. That it met the requirements. The only change that happened which would not apply to this, it might, depending on what use was being utilized, is that because the property in Vernon was being converted from that store restaurant to 5 one-bedroom units, the A&R people required a 220-gallon water tank be placed in the basement that was fed by the well, so there was a reserve available. Should all of them decided to take a shower at the same time or wash their car or whatever, but that's the only requirement for current usage of that property they required. In the South Newfane property, they said, oh, there's only, we're 1 bedroom, 2 people per 1 bedroom. Prior septic system had that in the capacity it did for the church. So you're okay. You don't need to do a thing. I'm suspecting that if this building were to be used for some other purpose, we'd probably get the same amicable scenario from the state that those other people got. But it's a good question that you've asked, definitely. Oh, I will say one other thing. The property, and we don't have this problem currently, unless we were to split up and make this a smaller lot. In the Vernon case, the state said, you've only got 1 leach field, and it's right at the point in the triangle where the 2 roads meet, Route 142 and another road. What we're going to require is that you install a specific filtration septic system. It's probably 1.5 times the normal septic system that pre-filters out the water before it goes into the leach field. And that was and they don't have to put it in now. They only have to put it in if the original system fails. So pretty decent.
Actually, just a quick follow-up, is any part of this property extending all the way to the recycling container, which I guess it does? Is any part of this property in a floodplain?
Not currently.
No, okay. Sort of surprising.
You would think so, but I've been here since '88, we've had at least 2 floods, and this property has not flooded.
That's right. Okay, Alyssa, and then listen.
Has the easement ever been used at the town office? Does anyone know?
Good question. I don't think so.
I'm not aware of it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Thank you.
Leslie, and then Marty, did you want to speak?
Well, thinking of the septic tanks, if it's got room for 55 people, does that mean that theoretically you can put up 55 apartments here? And or does Kepler property can handle how many people? So, look, I mean, or does the math somehow translate differently so that you can have 55 students, but maybe they're not living here, and therefore it's only 40 apartments. If you,
You'd have to ask that question. My suspicion is that part of the reason that we're meeting here today, that the select board is interested, and I think all the committee members, if I'm wrong, correct me, is the fact that the town, I would assume the citizens would like to control what comes here. So you can put restrictive covenants in, that it only be used for residential purposes and possibly limit the size of those or the number of those. So it's a question, it's a good question, but I think that it probably would scare most of us in this room to know that we have 55 units on this lot.
thinking in terms of what is the limit to the property. So for example, the town hall at the moment could take no more than X number of people, but here there's the opportunity for more people potentially. So even though I'm not suggesting a skyscraper, it's interesting to know whether there's room for 10 units versus 4 units versus et cetera.
I'd be happy to look and ask them if they tell me for free without actually filing an application to get some help for you, but I'm suspicious they probably wouldn't do that or suspect they wouldn't do that. So I'm sorry I couldn't answer your question.
Leslie and then Johnny.
Yeah, so my question was very similar to that. What kinds of restrictions would be put on this building for use, and who puts those restrictions on us? That's one question. And then the other is, what reasons have been given for why the existing town hall might not be sufficient anymore?
Anybody? Mike.
So you might be implying the wrong thing. There has not been any conclusion that the town office is sufficient.
Okay.
It's, I think one of this building, folks would say would give you more flexibility because you could do town hall plus. And then, the second thing is that there was a presumption for a while that, and there still is, that, the marketability of this building versus the marketability of that may be materially different. The marketability of commercial space like this is, they're all over the place. And one as a single home might be more marketable, but none of it. And then those are the kind of things I've been hearing, but none of it is cast in stone, and none of it is about like the town office is insufficient. I don't think we think of any identification that our town office is insufficient for our needs. Right
In
now.
fact, one thing that Stan did was he looked at other towns and the size of their town halls. And concluded, looking at the square footage, the population of the town, that the Brookline Town Hall is pretty much on par with other town halls, even for towns that are considerably bigger than ours. So it's not like we have this tiny little town hall for this gigantic town. We have a little town and a sufficient town hall when compared to other towns.
And then just in reference to the earlier question about who puts restrictions on this, did I understand that it's the town that would do that?
Seller.
Seller,
Which in this
okay.
case would be.
But the state or nobody else can say what kind of uses.
I don't have zoning here, so pretty flexible.
Johnny?
2 points. One, I'm gonna stick with my nitpicky semantics. The town office should be called the town office, not the town hall. It's not a town hall. Town halls and buildings are very different from multi-purpose buildings than the town hall. Which was last time we were here, would be called the town building. That's been corrected. The other thing is that the student listing of 55 students negates the fact, having had my kids go there, that there are adults in the numbers too, so probably more like 65. If you're talking 55 students, they're probably.
I'll rephrase my statement, which again, I apologize for, individuals. I didn't mean to imply that was only students. It's 55 individuals. You could go online and look at.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, when you're speaking out the numbers, I'm imagining 55 kids here.
Fine, but realistically, I hope that would be.
Marty, you wanted to say something and then Laura.
I was just thinking, my question was what can it physically handle? So the septic system there's only the option here for a larger number of people, whereas there's probably not the option there. Whereas the people can choose to make any restrictions. So voting is different than what's physically possible. But I just want to say, I was asking about what's physically possible.
So my question kind of comes off of hers is that, so there's one well. Can either property get its own well?
Oh, yeah.
So there's, okay, and how about the septic system? Is there two separate septic systems?
Very familiar with.
So
System on those.
it's easy to split that as well. Yeah, how about on Litchfield?
Wait a minute, there's totally different.
I would just add that while it's nice to know this stuff, right, it's good to have this information. Septic systems can be replaced, new wells can be dug. It's not a particular limiting factor other than, time and money. But we're not overly limited by those state law, overly limited by the list that, let's say, can't afford to do something about it.
Yes, Tim.
For Timothy Carr, I guess piggybacking off this lady's question. When we lived back in Pennsylvania, the developer of a sizable property failed to make repairs to his septic sewer system for the development. And in the end, the township was forced to take it over. And of course to them. I don't know what the rules are here in the state of Vermont. They're still pretty new. And I know this will be down the road. But is there anything like that here? Where the town could be liable to assume responsibility for a failed multi-unit property?
I wouldn't know how to respond to that other than it would seem to me. Well, I don't wanna get into legal stuff, but I don't know how they would have gotten a permit if they have a permitting system to put in something like that without having applied for it.
They had at the time.
They did, so something
Over
changed.
the course of the 10 years, they just failed to keep.
Oh, I don't, that's not,
Built the name.
shouldn't be someone else's fault.
Well, the township got stuck taking it on.
I have no idea whether Vermont Parallel Center did that.
So Mike? We're done. Okay. Dan?
I just wanted clarification on this may not be relevant to the state either, but I know in real estate that you can't put stipulations on your buyer if they're doing what, the code is. We aren't necessarily allowed to, we're allowed to say we don't want more than 3 units, and we don't want these kind of tenants, like if you sell the property. I mean, that doesn't, that.
I I'm under the understanding that a seller can put covenants on property that it sells. And that term, I believe, includes that. And I'm not an attorney, and I don't stand here alleging that I am. I would probably refer the town, hire an attorney that might be able to answer that question.
Yeah, okay, cause it's like, sounds great if we get to say we don't want 40 units here. But do we actually like be able to say that?
I'll do up the research I can, let you know.
Yeah.
Some of us,
Sweet, and nobody's looking into that.
I can look into that more. I don't know if anyone has looked at their deeds. Some of you might have mobile home restrictions. I've seen those a lot looking at properties here. So that, people sell it and they say, you can't ever put a mobile home on this again. I don't know. I don't know Vermont property law, if there's anything that specifically says you can't, but generally you can put restrictive covenants in a deed. I bet most realtors would tell you not to if you want to get a good price. It's not a lot of people want to accept something with a lot of restrictions, but yeah.
I think that's, you've touched on something that would be valuable to know more about is what options does the town have to say what comes next here if we sell this, and how would that affect the marketability of the property? So if it's even possible to do that.
Go ahead, Marjorie.
Marjorie Ray, I was wondering, are any parts of the building actually, I know we have an old front section, but is it considered historical? Is it like part covered as a historical building?
My understanding is no.
So
You put the vault anywhere. We don't have to worry about a window.
No, I mean, it's old, but it's not historical or any registry. And
Right.
Bruce and then Gary.
Bruce Mello, to answer your question is what Mary said. Because it's not on the historic registry, the building, from this building that you're sitting right now is built in 1929. So you can look at it for your own opinion, whether you think it's historical or not. The second thing I would like to point to is I would like to back up for a second about an observation I made about the town office this morning with respect to the easement. I wanted to go walking in there to see.
I just wanted to say that.
Comment to it. When you read the deed, what you find is the line that's along that stone wall is affected. But those things are the tour of the brook. It doesn't go to the brook. So anyone who's going to use it is probably going to want to put a bridge or some kind of tool. But if the line goes south of the brook over to the stream where the bridge is along the road, and then comes straight back to the corner of the concrete bridge near the town office. And the standard distance, I think, is 175 feet, both front and back. It's almost a square, but not quite. So I don't think that this might affect their ability to get across or legal ramifications there might be. I don't know.
Usually it's very specific, but it's strange when you put that way.
Yeah, well, it is. I don't know why.
And Gary and then Dan.
Yeah, good morning. You said you met with two realtors. Did they get a report back with you about the possibility of selling it with the market value? He did, but the first time we spoke with the tour the facility, it's Robert Doyle from Brookline, and he said off the top of his head that this property would not be very commercially effective. And because there's a lot of commercial real estate right now, that's much more. All the different school properties that are elementary school properties. Plus you have your 55,000 square foot building. So there's, and what he said was there's a lot of commercial. So if we wanted to do something
commercially, this property wouldn't have much value if we pretty much said it's really value. And then, we had Chris Howell from Chris Lewis, Chris Lewis, I don't know. And he talked to me because she indicated that, you know, she was just better than the amount of time over me. Reflecting on this, I don't know. And came back with a number of about $200,000. It's still in my account. One of the comments that the buyer of Herman Property said, the residential, because he said if you went commercial, like, maybe so many seconds here, you would have had to have put in a sprinkler system that added another job. And he said that would have made it financially not too close. So, and I see that the entities that have been
Other members here, Mary, as well, that they made some inquiries. And we also contacted, what's called ACCD is now DC something D. They have funded a lot of projects throughout the state. The director sent out a list to me, and I know Mary got a similar one from the entity she checked with. And what you'll see, there were on my list, there were 6 different parcels that were developed. All 5 of the 6 went residential because the housing shortage was easier to get grants for it. All the complexities that go on with commercial. There was 1 of those 6 that went half residential, half commercial. So the biggest option, the most advantageous position would be, should the citizens choose selling this building, would be looking at residential use. It'd be the more marketable of the 2.
Just as a point of comparison, in South Newfane, there was a nonprofit, New South Newfane Community Association. It was given a donation of a church, and it then sold that church to a small scale developer who was going to turn it into 2 or 3 residential units. Two. The asking price initially was $299,000. It sold for $56,000. So just a sense of the market. That said, there's a big need for housing. There is grant money for people who are developing housing. So I guess the developer felt it was a good thing, $56,000 and whatever it is to put into it. He will then either sell these or rent these residential units.
Did I read this wrong? So it says that it sold for $56,000 down on the asking price.
I missed a comma. It should be, it sold for $56,000, comma. That is down from the asking price of $299,000.
Danny? And then Bruce.
I don't have opinion or objective with the statement, shortly, just registering slight disagreement about the easement and the viability of selling that parcel. In terms of, I think Stan, you were just stating it makes it much less desirable. Sure, easements are great, not knowing who's gonna come and go, but essentially I kind of see it as a driveway to get to this other property. So it would just be, you know, that family or whoever's associated with that family. And it's very, very common in Vermont that a lot of people live absolutely right on the side of, you know, main corridors that are very, you know, populated compared to an easement that's getting people not even to a full-time residential home. So I'm not trying to say I think that building should be sold. I'm just simply stating I don't know how much of a negative impact it is.
Unless it's used for logging.
Bruce.
Well,
Committee, there were 7 or 3 realtors that looked at both buildings. Can you share with everybody what those realtors thought of the marketability of the town office?
Robert Doyle was the first one to see the town office of the 2 realtors, and we were brainstorming. Lyle was there, and others. He said that if you sold it to somebody to turn it into a primary home, you could visualize walking in, having the kitchen to the left, the master bathroom about where the vault is, part of the bathroom that's there now, but building it into where the vault is now, having 2 bedrooms, where the back meeting room is. There's lots of closet space there. And then that leaves a very small living area, but Lyle had the great idea of maybe getting rid of the basement access so that you'd have more room on the first floor. And then you'd have to go outside and into a bulkhead to get to the basement, but it would give you more living space. So all of this was pie in the sky. What would you do? And if the town decided to sell that building and sold it to a spec builder who wanted to say pay $100,000 for it and then sell it as a primary residence for say 200,000, all of these are pie in the sky numbers. That could be a possibility because there is a shortage of housing in the area of houses that are in that price range. We did talk about the pros and cons that if it were sold, that the parking for the round schoolhouse would no longer be available across the street. But that was where we left it with Robert Doyle. We wanted to make it very clear that this was all back of the envelope thinking and nothing written in stone. And at the time that we met with him, we didn't quite know we didn't know what the specifics of the easement were. But he said that, you know, you can sell property with an easement, but it probably will bring the property value down somewhat, depending on it's all in the eye of the buyer.
Unfortunately, the realtor that I had asked to come gave the number for this building, but they have not. And even though I've asked a number for the other building, so I can't add to that any manner, shape, or form.
Thank you. Her opinion though was that this building had a lot more value than that building. Previous, but and she could not see a reason why you would treat that building, come to this building, looking what she saw. So she didn't really bother to address it. Press for it, but that was her, those are her 2. And then she came back with the numbers on this building.
Okay, Dan first and then Margaret second, and then Johnny third.
I'm just asking questions more at the moment, but I wonder if it would be, in addition to the couple of realtors you've spoken with, maybe talk to somebody who's developed, say, residential property in this area to find out, would they envision if they were going to purchase this property for residential use, would they be inclined to keep this building or just tear it down and build something altogether new? And the same goes for the town office property. Would that building be, you know, demolished to make way for something else? Or would they adapt that present building for housing that we're describing? I just was wondering if that.
So we are trying to connect with small scale developers to just try to throw out there, hey, if this building were to come on the market, what sort of interest might there be? We've been in touch with the Vermont Office of Housing, which has a program for this is so common around the state. And the state has a program for developers where they share resources. It's called Homes for All. We're trying to connect with people from there to get answers to some of those questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Margaret, you were next, and then Johnny Swain.
Because I have 2 comments. Let's say we end up selling this building. Where do we meet? Because
Yeah,
the town
good question.
office is town office.
It's not a town hall. It's
Town office is not a hall. And I don't know if all of us would fit into that back living room.
That's why we're meeting here.
Brookline meeting house right there. Yeah.
That's a possibility. And then we also talked about there are places that we could rent for the town meeting or, you know, town meeting. So it's definitely there are options.
I mean, there's buildings all over the place that could be subsidized.
And the other thing, I know you keep talking about the South Newfane Church, but what's that, an acre of land, and we have 6.
Right.
And I think if you wanna continue to try to compare the Athens to their property, we need to find some other ones with that throughout the state. Because a lack of affordable, working class housing is what we need, if we need anything built throughout the entire state. And it's very depressing that it isn't, I mean, that's a lot of depressing things going on around, but that was my comment, is that we need to see some other options where they have a big piece of property. So that's like an acre.
We had also been in touch with the Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust, which it's so in northern Vermont, there's something called Rural Edge, which has taken a lot of buildings, school buildings or churches, and turned them into small rental units. Nobody's talking like 40 units and nothing, they're really 2 or 4 or 6. We were in touch with this Wyndham Windsor Trust, and they were not interested because they only deal with buildings that have municipal services. So that was one avenue we went down that was sort of a dead end, but we're continuing to pursue whatever we can find out. I mean, there's just so much out there in terms of the state and housing funding and programs. There's just a lot. And so we're looking into as much as we can without since no decisions made, we can't really go too deep down the road, but we're trying to learn as much as we can.
I slightly disagree or have a different view of the value of this building. Having had friends that come up from Vermont to look at places to buy or move here, there's virtually nothing built. That house just north of Dutton's farm stand on Route 30 sold for $300,000. That shack, 3/4 of the properties on flooded twice a year. I see this building is worth much more in the 4 to 5 range. I just can't imagine houses that are selling right here for 300 are junk. And you know, up in the 4 range is more. If you get somebody from New York City come in here, an artist, you know, somebody successful come in here and just make this into a studio and a garage downstairs, like boom. You don't have to develop it or anything. Just let somebody's imagination go wild. You know, I'd much rather live in Brookline than off the edge of Route 30. Yeah, and when we're talking, you can't, you know, 300 seems like a high side, and like 300 seems like the rock bottom. I'm baffled by.
Now, are you suggesting going to the market as is?
I'm saying if you thought of selling this, I would certainly go to the market as is with stipulations. I think you could literally say a single family unit has to be, and this place would go in a week at 450.
So
That's interesting.
I mean, property in Dummerston up on Pilgrim's Farm. Every house up there has been marketed between 6 and 8, and they are on the market for 3 days. And yes, Pilgrim's Farm is definitely not walking distance, but 5 minutes to the best grocery stores. Brookline's very different, but Brookline's really special. You come across this bridge, this town has such a wonderful feeling. Everybody's going there for everybody. It's like a breath of fresh air. You're not caught up on Route 30. It's a really amazing town, and I'm just baffled to hear that this building, which I see could be someone's home, happily, or multi-units. This could be divided into 2 or 3 units and still go for 200 a unit. I think the numbers are off of what you're getting. When you hear of that property just north of Dutton, it's for 300.
Charm of the town has always been we're on the way to nowhere.
That's
right.
Sorry, Athens. Well, John, you may be absolutely right. They're just reporting what.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying I'm having a different view.
Yes.
Well, I like the artist view.
Well, it's not just the artists, it's been a town like coming up to New York City, there is absolutely nothing available right now. Like, and I heard you mention 100,000. It's like 100,000. You couldn't find a trailer for 100,000. And 200,
That was only 2 realtors. I have a 3rd realtor lined up when they come back in town. And if you have other realtors.
Grayson read odds, and he just bought a house and moved to South to West Brattleboro, but so
Any suggestions on who we should talk to would be super helpful.
I can get you a buyer right this minute.
For a finder's fee, I'm sure.
Mike, I think this is a good time for me to add, so, because I'm in support of what you're saying, and don't really know, right? But it could very well be worth all that. Just in order of magnitude, while I'm not gonna present numbers tonight, I am a numbers guy, and the numbers that we've crunched so far, they've been screened a little bit, but they could change, so I'm not gonna tell you what they are. But if in order of magnitude, and it's not insignificant gaps, the most expensive thing for us to do, according to my modeling, is to do nothing. Just sit on everything. That's the most expensive scenario. And by the way, when we used to rent this out, it used to cover not only the cost of this building to operate it, but the cost of the town hall. So we actually had a little profit center when the schools.
Wow.
So, so now we're going to the work, we do nothing, worst case, right? So the clock is a little bit ticking on it. Let me just say, so to move the town office here and to, have space to do other stuff and sell that building at some of them we talked about is kind of, and I've been measuring over 10-year period. Okay, and the next one down is move the town office here. That's the second most expensive. Now that could change depending on the third lowest cost option, if you will, is if we could find a tenant that didn't even pay too much money, but would then cover the cost of operating the building, the heat, light, power, and maybe pay us a little rent. That would be the next least expensive, or whatever you want to say, number three. And materially so, if we could get any reasonable amount for this building, whether it be 200, whether it be 300, whether it be 400, is materially the low cost option. And comes with it risk. I think I've heard some of the risk in the statements that folks are making. Who's coming in? What are they going to do? But just by order of magnitude, selling this building so far on paper purely is the low cost option. Nothing is the highest. Town hall 2, rent school 3.
And have you ranked the most profitable versions? Because the cost is not necessarily.
It's all in. So as a matter of fact, depending on what we get for the school, right? Because we have to spend some money to make it readily available. Depending on what we get, we could have a profit.
Well,
and I'll call it low cost.
except that if you put in multiple units here, then the revenue to the town with tax.
Well, I'm not factoring in tax. I'm factoring in an assumption about if this became a taxable property, what might the property taxes be? And that would be a benefit of selling this building. That was in all likelihood, it would become a tax paying property. So that's all in my mind. All in the mind.
How many units was your highest number of units?
I just have a dollar amount. I don't know what units. I'm like, what could I get for this building? It's not about the unit. It's about the building and generally speaking, the square footage and generally speaking, what residential properties pay per square foot in town. I did some back of the envelope back.
So Gary and then Pat, just 2 points. In the original meeting we had for this, Sally Fagley volunteered to get into this. Did anybody check with her?
No, but I actually had thought about reaching out to her and will.
I think she mentioned that she would be interested in looking at the market and making a report.
We'll reach out to her. I think the more realtors we speak to, the better.
The second point is that it seems like to sell this commercially is not viable. And that we need housing, residential seems to be the way to go. So I wouldn't even consider trying to get commercial people in here with the extra expense of the sprinkler system, et cetera.
Pat, you're next, and then we.
So in your modeling that you're doing, you have some models that just have the school and the immediate heritage property around it with the field separate, and town kept the field separate.
Yeah. I think we made an assumption about, that Stan had said some things at meetings about, this playground, go with it, let's get the septic out here, goes out to that driveway, whatever, and then we'd keep the feel, but it's not that refined yet that I could say I've adequately incorporated that, but we assume that we wouldn't necessarily need to sell off the fields. We would sell what we need to sell.
Yes.
And then Barbara.
My comment was pretty much on par with Pat's. Just wondering that additional acreage that is the field, which I understand might be nice for the town to continue to have if they want to do something on it. But just the fact that since I've been here in 22 or 23 years, I haven't seen anything go on in that. And that it may be additional revenue for the town at a time that we might need it. Also with maybe restrictions or with the option to buy when this property, if this property was sold for the people that was buying. I'm just thinking there's some really good options and the best use
Okay.
for the town.
And a separate sale of that land has not been something I've incorporated yet into my assumption, so that's a good point. That be even more.
Okay, Barbara, or next, and then Julie.
My question is can we advertise this as a rental property just to see if there's an interest in anyone, you know, before we made money on it, and when the daycare closed, but there might be another interest in it. Is there an interest or a reason why we couldn't advertise it just to see if there is anyone who wants to rent it?
So can we do that without the approval of the residents? My understanding was we were gonna it was gonna be up to the town what we wanted to do. Are you suggesting just sort of as to test the waters?
Yeah,
Put it
just
on
like
rental
we're
market?
talking to realtors, how would we know if it was viable to rent it? If we did make money on it, in the past, that maybe it would be.
Yeah, I guess if somebody came in tomorrow and said, hey, I want to rent a place and it's a reasonable number and, it helped us enough.
Yeah.
I guess the select board could say, hey, let's do that. And by the way, time out, we're not gonna do that other thing that we said we're gonna do for a couple of years, we'll put it on ice for a couple of years. That's a scenario that's possible. It's not nothing keep us from doing that other than we kind of be changing the game, if you will.
Like pop-up rentals for winter, Christmas. I don't know.
Julie, you're next year in line.
I just really like to piggyback on Barbara's comment, which is it's a lot easier to sell property than it is to buy. And if the town owns this property, it would be really, I think the most advantageous thing would be to figure out a way to keep the property and not lose money, which would be, if Barbara's idea or option 3 could be figured out. And it seems short-sighted to sell property.
We could always vote as a town to do exactly that. It's one of the scenarios.
No,
And then if it fails, right, we try to do it, right, then we come back and say, hey, it's not working.
Right now it's an anchor and it's a problem.
Right.
But, if it was marketed properly and it didn't have to be sold, it would be a wonderful asset for the town to continue, having this. I mean, you see plenty of situations where towns sell property and like 20 years later, like, I wish we still had that.
Sure.
It's like,
Well, that's option 3 on the list right now is to keep it and rent it.
right. The other question sort of piggybacks on that, which is say the property is sold, regardless of what it's sold for. I assume that the money goes into the town's coffers and therefore somehow either lessens the tax burden or enables us to buy something else or do something. And, that's a large amount of money. Do you amortize that over 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, 1 year? I mean, what is 1 year you look like a king, but
Yeah.
everyone loves you because the tax is gonna,
Yeah, I didn't get to that part of it. I just, it's sold in year 2. Look at it in a 10-year period, cash in, cash out, and so it on some of these things, I assume we sell the property in 2028, and we pick up $300,000, whatever, goes to offset other expenses.
Julie Livornia, you have the floor now.
Okay.
Should have had it
I
before.
just wanted to say that I think it would be a terrible, terrible waste of this building to move the town office into this building. we feel very strongly about that. I love our town because it's perfect. It's perfect for this building. My dream for this building is for it to be an artist's collective. I don't know if that ever happened.
Some friends. Jerry, you're up.
Third Warren. I agree with you, Julie. The town office was meant to be the town office, it was given to the town, etc. But I think it'd be short-sighted to sell any of our real estate with the values that were presented to us, and it seemed extremely low. The values of property are going up rapidly, and the projected value is way more than what's being proposed here. So I just think it'd be short-sighted to sell any of our property.
Let's see, Jess, you haven't spoken
I
yet.
haven't. I just want to say that the option of moving the town office here is something we're exploring because enough people have said, what if? What if we move the town office? And it's not a like we need a new town office. It's not anything like that. It's just an avenue that's been brought up enough for us to have it be one of the things that we're seriously exploring. So just to clarify that nobody's, saying our town office isn't good enough, because by goodness, it really is.
Jerry, I clarify what you're clarify what you're saying. You said, do you think we should hold on to holding on to both properties? You said town hall's perfect, right? It's town office. And this
Pursuing a rental
and New Year's pursue a rental. Okay.
Dan, you, and then Gary.
Well, I don't know what the viability would be of finding a renter. Well, I don't know what the viability of any of these options is exactly, but it seems like this building is large enough to accommodate or have potentially multiple uses at once. Like rent different spaces separately. I don't know if there's anybody that would be interested in renting, just about every room in this building has its own bathroom. So that's convenient. If someone wanted to use a room as a studio or workspace of some sort, it would be, I could see that happening, that being useful to somebody potentially. And the other thing is it'd be really, I think, helpful if somehow the town could, and I know this isn't gonna happen if the building gets sold for housing, but if we could somehow hang on to the use of the downstairs for town meetings and, town functions of any kind for that matter. Because, it's been said that we have the church next door, and we do, but at least in my judgment, that building needs a lot of expensive work to get it to the point where this building pretty much already is in terms of year-round viability and, proper heating, lighting, everything else that you need for a, usable, functional year-round space. So that's just, some thoughts.
My name is David Roach. We moved here basically in 22. So if this is gonna be looked at a rental or a prospect for rental, who meets? Is it one person, two people, or does the whole select board? Or would it be you guys as a committee that's formed, sit down and talk to the individual or individuals interested in renting this? So there's more, I don't know if we have other prospects that came forward and who met with them or anything else. But my concern as a citizen that's lived here and seen things that I don't necessarily agree with, but I believe if you have prospects, there should be a minimum of 3 people sitting down, whether you meet with a realtor or an individual company or an individual person, So that everybody there takes notes and there's no bias. You ask questions back and forth, you get a final touch or feeling what that individual's willing to pay or what they want. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because right now, who beats somebody if there was interest since this building's empty since last year? Who met with these people? And I'm sure there was people that came because I've met people from other towns that said they were interested in renting this building. And we haven't heard a thing. Who met with these people? I'm a taxpayer. I'm interested in what's going on in our town. Period.
So are we, Dave. I don't think any of us are familiar with any of. the
So that's
types of
what I
renters.
want to know.
Not, our committee is not aware.
So I think it should be more than one individual or two individuals. It should be a group or a committee, just like that's already formed here. Or the whole select committee. Or a large percentage of people. So they can ask questions just like you're interviewing somebody for a position. Is that understandable or am I out of line?
Do you mean what's the decision or do you?
No.
No.
When an individual, say we put this out for rental.
Right, so but that's the part that we're trying to figure out now.
Right,
Right,
but what I'm saying is, when we get to that point,
just,
we
it's gonna be
need
one member of. the
one
select
member,
board.
we need
Make sure that it's one. It seems
one
like,
input.
yeah,
I
that's
think
what
it should
you're
be,
trying to say.
it should be a controlled.
Yeah,
So to come, can I respond to it?
Yeah, I think an answer is appropriate at this point.
Yeah, so my response is, this committee's job is not to go beyond helping us decide which option we want to pursue.
Right.
They, at the moment, their charter does not include, that. Let's say that the town decides they want to rent it. Their charter does not include managing a rental
Okay,
process.
so at that point, who would meet with the interested parties?
So the answer would be, how do we want it, right? If we do what kind of has been the history, it falls in the domain, fell in name domain of the select board. Bruce has typically been on point. I think we've only had two tenants, right, since the time. One was the previous nursery school and then the subsequent nursery school, and I'm guessing you were probably on point with those folks. But the select board ultimately reviewed and signed up on the leases.
Yes.
We could continue that. We could decide to set up a subcommittee, which I think would be a great idea. Change that.
yeah.
And people could either get voted to it, appointed to it, run for whatever. Doesn't have to be the select board. Right now, I think legally it rests with the select board. The select board could vote to delegate that authority to a subcommittee. We can do it any way we want.
I think the select subcommittee.
But first we have to decide if that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, a subcommittee would make more sense
And just one.
than just one person.
Sure, but we first have to decide, is this the avenue, is this the avenue? we
Well,
want
from
to
what
pursue?
we're hearing, the best thing that we know is, from what I'm listening, not saying anything, was everybody feels we can make more money off a rental as per se selling it for commercial. So if you're gonna have rental or whatever, you should have some type of subcommittee overwatching
Sure,
what's going on.
sure. When and if we get to that point.
Yeah, when you or us get there.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people that want to say things. Marjorie first, Gary, you had your hand up. There were some other hands up. Barbara had her hand up, so my brain can only handle so much at once. So how about Marjorie, Gary, Barb? And then we'll redo at that point.
I just want to say I'm glad to hear that there has been interest, that people have been interested, because I've only heard stories of, oh, they came and they looked at it, but no, they can't. So it would be great if we had some people that wanted to rent it. Yeah, that's all.
Here,
I was offended when they said that, was it the Windsor Housing Trust, that they wanna go someplace where there's municipal services? We have the best road crew.
It's more like sewer, like a city sewer, water and sewer. Yeah.
It's true. We do have a group.
That's town clerk and assistant town clerk. I'm getting that. You have the best model review. And you have the best fire department.
It's true.
Ambulance crew. We have contractors in town that responded to a flood we had where water, stuff was washed out and they just came and fixed it. You know, in coordination with our town crew. I mean, we have a lot of stuff going on here that's good. But that was offensive to me.
Did you leave the chair select board out for us?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that in all caps for the vote.
Let's bring the town office, I'm sorry.
Right, you're next.
Just to speak to Dave's point there, I have met with the supervisory union and Bruce here to show they showed an interest. And we're very interested, other than it doesn't have the right amount of fiber coming in for their phone systems that they need. So that was a big downfall there as tenants. And then we showed it to Kindle Farm over the winter. And that didn't amount to a callback. But I have been talking to Bob Tebow, the superintendent, and he's spoken to the CEO of Grace Cottage, and they're kind of interested in trying to get like a co-op daycare for their employees, so that and he was thinking of our facility just for. But that would be, you know, it would have to be advertised, see if there was an interest in, you know, evidently they have enough families that need childcare. Or yeah. But anyway, that being said, so that's just how it started. It's just like show somebody a good family or something.
Right, I know a bigger picture there. Anybody else? Stanley?
Yeah, just two quick comments. The numbers that Andrea and myself spoke about from the realtors. I know the numbers that I got from the realtor that I asked me consider is not a number that I support as an individual. But they sell it real estate and have for years. So they've come up with those numbers. I'm not saying I support that, and I hope I don't create that impression. I think at one point in one of the meetings, Michael Seaton asked me what I thought the property was worth, and he probably thought I was crazy at the time. But I don't think I should say the number because I don't want to influence anybody anyway. In regard to easements, all I can say is this: I appraised the property for 26 years. Not one appraisal that I did over that 26-year period had an easement like the easement we have here at the town office. And that tells me something. I don't have to analyze it. It just look, nobody did. So whatever anyone's opinions are, they're an opinion of yourselves, ourselves. And so that's all I have to say.
I think it's important to keep in mind too, that the family that has the easement on that property also donated the property for where the town office now sits. Right. So, that's an important part of the equation to keep in mind.
Can I ask a question? I would love to hear what everybody thinks should be done. Does the town need a building like this to be a town office? Should it be a community center? Should it be a daycare center? I mean, does anyone have any ideas that we should be looking at that we have not yet explored?
Mark?
I think it should be a daycare center. I've been pushing that right along since the last one got closed, but just because I hear young families that are in need to go to work and have to go to Brattleboro. Right, and go to Brattleboro and then come back up the valley to go to work at either the hospital or, you know, work.
Johnny? And then Lori?
What was the rent that the school was paying you? What was those
It was about 24 and change, 2,400 a month and change.
I mean,
Plus they picked up a fair amount of the expenses, obviously.
utilities. I'm just thinking outside the box here. If the town developed this property for, say, rental units, you know, could you fit 3 or 4 rental units in here And there's not a rental unit that's not going for less than 1,500, you know, you could be, you know, obviously there's a cost to getting it up to that level.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a lot of clamoring for low income housing, not that that's low income housing, but there's really no housing of any sort available for people. So, I mean, that would be a much bigger commitment for the town to make this into a rental property.
Right.
But it is, if there's a large enough demand in the town not to sell the property, but to rent it, that could be an option where, that could be a fifth option we're thinking about, which is investigating the cost of turning this into whatever feasible amount of rental properties.
Right. I'm guessing you would, like a scenario like that would be somehow grant dependent, because I mean, you're talking about a big town investment in a high risk to overinvest in this building and hope that, you know, that you get a payback.
And there really aren't for rental units.
Right.
I mean, anybody, can't really think of them. So, I don't know, just thought.
Right.
Lori, you were next. Fran, I saw your hand up. Marnie, I saw your hand. So there's next three.
I'm really torn, as to what should happen with this building. You know, I went to school here when it was just really a one-room school once. And I realized the need for daycare. I also like the idea of elder care. Even our own local, you know, it was a very small kitchen, but, you know, even some senior meals, again, you know, some community meetings. There's a lot of, those of you who don't know, we've formed a new history group for the town of Brookline, and trying to preserve our Brookline history, and there's no place to keep that. You can't keep it in the round schoolhouse because it's not temperature controlled, same with the meeting. There is a room in the town office for that. So we have a wealth of historical information that sits in cardboard boxes and is kind of
Done here.
right. And this could also be a point for people to, and people come all the time from the round schoolhouse for a tour, but we can't keep that material in there year round because it's kind of falling apart. The material is. So, I mean, I'm really torn, but then at the same time, I'm like, we could use the revenue as a town as tax base. And we can also use it, like Johnny had suggested, you know, to lower people's tax base for however many years based on whatever we get for a price. So I mean, I'm really torn. But I think we have to look to make a decision at the numbers. The bottom line is numbers and who's going to maintain this building. I think Bruce, right now, you do a lot of this as volunteer, and Mark, it's a lot to be responsible for, to maintain. And so I mean, eventually that's gonna have to really be a serious line item in the budget, town budget, is maintaining the products.
And in my modeling, I've assumed Bruce retires
Correct.
as the labor of our building.
And we're such volunteers in the town, you know,
Oh, yeah, so
it's great to see new people involved. It's very appreciated. So that's where I stand.
Fran, you're next, and then Marnie.
I was thinking along the lines of housing also, to be able to convert this into housing or apartments for people who want to add to the population here in the town. Do we want to be landlords? Does the town want to be a landlord, or can we get, I think the governor wants, his whole thing is let's get more people here, and there aren't enough housing, there's not enough livable space for people. Aren't they supporting that up in the Burlington area, and you know, could that be funding that we could get here to convert it into livable units?
For the town to do it?
To get funding from the state?
Okay, we're looking into those. The problem with that kind of grants, it's a long process. So maybe, you know, it's competitive. Maybe we could, I mean, there's certainly grant money out there. It's just, it's not a quick fix. If we're looking for a quick fix.
A lot of the grants are sort of seed money, they're not $50,000. And you're talking 18-month process and paperwork and so forth to get $50,000, which is seed money, and then you gotta go find other money. So. Marty?
I was just thinking it would be some that it looks, I'm guessing that I'm Marty Nicholson, right? It looks like Jess, you're taking notes. I was thinking it would be so nice to, I'm sure there'll be somewhere that we can find something. But wouldn't it be nice if I go home and you say, oh, my buddy John Doe would totally buy this for $1 million. And yes, I can talk to people, but if I could go online to a Wikipedia and say, my buddy so-and-so would like this property for personal house, whatever. And then I think it could get this much. And then, you know, we could go through the list of everybody's ideas of what they want or what they actually think are plausible. And so that he could check it off. No, Marty's friend John Doe is a dead end, not interested to think. But at least there'd be a list of all the ideas and then, you know, how they were followed up or not followed up, who the realtor was, who wasn't, yeah, just so that everybody in town, not just the people who are here. I don't know if that's a big bureaucratic ask to have a website like that or not. Yeah.
There is a vast majority of that in the minutes from every meeting, because in the minutes, we are discussing who's contacted who's making progress with what. And so it's not a full list, but it is a great deal of what we're doing every single meeting is in
Maybe
minutes.
people would prefer that there's a gatekeeper to that. But I was also thinking it'd be nice if there could be more of a Wikipedia style, except maybe not readable or something. So that it's easier to list the information.
The good thing is we have a web designer in our midst.
But we have a page, we have all of our meetings are right on one page, every agenda. We also have an email address for anyone, and I keep putting it out there, anyone can mail us ideas on this email address. And then we could sort of compile those and share those with everybody.
I would add too, you guys meet every 2 weeks.
We meet every
right?
2 weeks.
On Tuesdays, so the meetings are open to the public,
We would love more
Yeah.
people to show up.
so that's another avenue. Let's see, are we, yes, we are, my 3 green here, Danny, and then Bruce, and did I see another, and Carrie? Okay.
So not exactly addressing your question on what I want. There's a lot of ideas here that are really exciting. But mostly I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for stepping up to do this. And I'm asking you through the process when we met. When we met down in the basement 6-9 months ago, and it was, you know, a lot of ideas were thrown out, and this committee wasn't even an idea then, or maybe it was, I didn't know. But this committee got made as a product of that meeting, and I have seen them follow through on everything we suggested that day. Well, what about this? What about that? And each one of these individuals I know has research to know in what the plausibility of whatever we have brought forward to them. And so, which has only made it that much more complicated. I think that's not done, but mostly I just wanted to say thank you, and I see the dedication and the hard work, and I also see how heated this can be because everybody kind of has their opinion about what they want, but y'all have done a really good job at staying neutral and just reporting back. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Danny.
I have to quickly say, it's been a wonderful committee to be on. I've been on a lot of committees in my years. This is a great one in every way. Everybody contributes in their own way and we all work together very, very well. So it's been a lot of fun, but I'm glad that when Mike and Emily hired us, so picked this out, they said there is an end date and November 2nd, and is when the general election is, which is when we'd like to ask the taxpayers of Brookline what they would like. So now we're wrestling with that, is how do we word a ballot? And
can we do it in one ballot? And, you know, that's what we're up against now. So the deadline was very appealing.
And this would be Australian ballot, correct? So townwide voting on a.
We'd have to warn 30 days in advance.
October 2nd.
The steps have been taken to allow that to happen. So, Bruce, you were next and then Carrie.
Well, I'd like to see this healthy process continue and conclude at some point. There's a lot of things I found very interesting and some things I'm not so interested in. But that's not for me for now. Like I said, I want to see the process go and keep on going. What I really want to address is this daycare issue that keeps popping up. And it was said that Kindle School came here. Yeah, they were interested about 8 or 10 kids going here. Yes, the WCSU came here both times, both groups. One was not a group. Bob Tebow came with his tech person and his building person and takes care of all the buildings for when we met for an hour and a half. And I saw very little interest in a daycare. But what everybody is not knowing hasn't been mentioned, because I only mentioned it last week at the select board meeting, because Mary called me out on it in a nice way. I didn't know about this, and I thought that you guys did know about it, but I wasn't even going to bring it up. But then I was told, no, you got to close it. And I had met you. Okay, sure. Okay. Because I met with the people that own Pumpkin Patch in Putney, and they are presently at the Putney Inn.
That's a daycare?
Yes. And how that was presented to me, because I got an email from Stephanie, who was in that office for many years for Sunny Lane Daycare, and she is a human resource person for that daycare. So we set up a meeting. They came over, I don't want to say 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And it only managed to be about 40 minutes. It was kind of weird because I knew the woman and she goes to my church, but I never really had a conversation with her. So we, between myself, the two, her, I don't even know her name, her husband and Stephanie, we all had a very pretty quick, singing to the choir conversation about daycares. And their reaction was they got to go someplace, but they didn't feel that they could do it here for a lot of reasons, which I don't think it's necessary for me to go in to every specific reason. But daycares have not worked in this town. It's been proven. It's been proven by two. Let me finish, please. By two competent people. The second one, Susie Kudamarsh. I remember when I first talked to her, she was hot. She was so excited to be in this building. And every one of her personnel that was here 4 years, will be 4 years now, I think this January, gone by the time they left. They had a problem with personnel. They had a problem with getting kids here. They had a problem with cost expenses. It goes on and on. So it's not a very simple process to get a daycare, and what has to be considered is all the costs. When you say, we're going to have a daycare come in here, well, what has to happen is they have to find out what the costs are to run a daycare, and also in conjunction with the state. And that's just the facts of life. And those two very competent daycares hold out.
Yeah. I just want to point out, I don't think that it's typical for a municipality to generate or create housing and then manage it. Having a couple rental houses, Barbara and I can't imagine a select board member wanting to take that on top of everything else. I know Bruce is our building commissioner, and just the work he has is staggering to begin with. And just to add something like that and the multiple personalities, it would, if we decided that this should be housing, then I hate to say it, but the way to go would be to sell the building
and the buyer manage it.
That's
right. And get into, if you're gonna do that, instability of people. It would be somebody's headache.
Yeah.
Ours.
Yes.
Right?
I just wanted to add information that I don't know for statute, but if you do sell this building and we keep the meeting house, the septic system is probably 150 years old, so you probably have to start using that building for more population. You probably have to upgrade the septic system and drill a well. Because we're sharing.
Yeah.
And I believe you can only, I believe a well has to be 200 feet from the leach field.
Yes,
That's right. So with that in mind, so that narrows down some of that. You know, rental, if you were gonna rent it, I feel like there's capabilities of getting enough money so that the income pays for an upkeeper. You know, somebody maintain stuff. But again, Brookline is a very nice, actually highly sought after place to live. So, whatever we do, we shouldn't give it away. I believe Johnny nailed it. I stand behind John's opinion 100%. And we've got something that's a great asset. All of our buildings are great assets. And there's a lot of potential here.
It's all on you, Jenny.
Yeah. And you don't look right anywhere.
Dan. I just worry that, I know there's a trying need in this area and in the entire state. Probably for housing that's affordable for a working family. Or even a working person, couple. But my fear is that what gets built generally is, if left to their own devices, to developers, is what will make them the most money, which is probably a big fancy vacation home or something like that. I don't know if we sell this property for housing, we're gonna necessarily get the kind of housing we necessarily need and want it. So that's what concerns me about selling this property and losing complete control over what happens.
I think just throwing in, that's a great point, and the folks in South Newfane waited to find, get a bid from a very responsible developer who had done projects that they liked, very consistent with historically constant little community, and somebody who has some kind of a social motivation as well. Like, this, yes.
But again, that's, excuse me, sort of a different, very different scenario than what we got here, to my mind, at least. That was a church that they want to convert to housing, and what we're talking about here is, I don't know, a much different building and a larger piece of property. I don't know if it compares that.
Bruce, and then one comment. And we have no zoning in town. Dan's 1000% correct. If we sell it to the developer, they can do whatever the hell they want. If we sell it with land, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, they can do whatever they want on this land. And the story, you're right about the management part. We don't agree much, Karen, but we agree on that. So I think we need to spend the time, and this is my opinion, it doesn't happen often, but we do agree. We gotta let the committee do its due diligence. When it's all said and done, we have another meeting, maybe another second meeting. Hammer it out.
Okay, Alyssa, you were next, and then Mike.
Well, I don't know, I was trying to think of this, but just in reference to South Newfane, they also have other town buildings, like meeting spaces, the town hall, Williamsville Hall. Is there like
Grange Hall.
the South Newfane Schoolhouse? So for, if one, so they have more buildings than we do to work with. If they wanted to change one of the housing, they still have all these other buildings that are possible to use for residents or townspeople.
Absolutely.
Like, I was gonna say, I agree with Bruce, what he said, and what he said about everybody else that said stuff. But I think, as far as this committee is concerned, okay, at the end of the day, whatever, what this group is gonna be doing and is what kind of what you're doing is flagging risks. They are not going to be able to resolve those risks, right? It's gonna be in the implementation to manage those. So if we go down a rental path, this committee will have benefits and risks identified. But if we elect to go down that path, then when we implement is when we're gonna have to manage those risks optimally. They won't be able to solve them, just identify them, like as you are partially here.
Right.
Okay, Pat?
I'm just worried that November 2nd is gonna be too soon.
I know.
It will be
Right,
soon.
yeah, in my opinion, I think it would be good to let everybody cook on this. I know the money's pouring out the windows, but if it could wait until March, it would give people, what if someone did come along, so they wanted to rent it? And you already said, no, we're gonna tear the building down, but it would give people to look around a little bit more and think about it a little bit more instead of rushing into, a rock solid decision. I would prefer to see it wait until March, the town meeting. And then you could have plenty of time to draw up your ideas and the pros and cons of all the options. Maybe you could have a voting on like, what are the preferred options? And then let it cook over the winter and say, okay, March, we're gonna try to decide in March. That's just my opinion.
I concur on that. November's.
Summer's too soon, but March is too late, in my opinion.
You can hold a special election.
That's correct.
I'm just saying, if you were thinking of Australian ballot, then that's something that could happen prior to town meeting, but later on to
And so
take into consideration what you're saying.
also if over for the holiday season, if there was anyone that wanted to do a pop-up rental, have a workshop in here for something holiday or something, that's just, that's on the side, but.
Leanne's volunteering for this.
Well, actually, I just had a thought, pop into my head, Leanne Wilson. Because I talked with the town of Dummerston, because the West Dummerston School is similar size to this building. And they tried, I don't know how well it's worked out. They use it as more of a community center. And I don't know if that's been, how that's worked out for the town. It might be worth, another avenue for information.
Didn't the library just become the community center? Oh, wait, no, that's Putney. Not Houston.
Was.
It's
in the same building.
It's in the same building.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the library was able to expand to a cluster, while the library used to just be in one room.
Okay,
Yeah, I haven't been there in a while. People rented it a long time ago for, little events.
Okay.
And
Isn't it privately owned? Though? It was when I
do not,
Bob Johnson used to.
it might be by some sort of nonprofit, I don't know.
I don't know. Well, he's no longer with us.
No, thanks.
Perfect suggestion.
Bruce,
Just a quick suggestion. I understand what you're saying, Pat. And you're right in one respect, because we're rigid on, or there was the thought of being rigid of having it on election day. And it was already answered that we could have an Australian ballot anytime. I think we should do the September 12th meeting, hash it out more, see where we sit. September 12th to September 12th. Maybe we could have another meeting the first week in October. Let's breathe a little bit. Let's get all the ideas out. Let's talk it out and see what, and I want to make one last point. Everybody said, well, I have all my personal interests. I have this personal. I want everybody to think what's in the best interest for the town of Brookline for 100 years. go home with that. And then we can visit on the 12th, maybe have another meeting after that and see what comes out of it.
One thing to keep in mind about Australian ballot on the day of town meeting, it can't be held in the same building. That's town meeting. Wow. Which would require a town clerk to be down at the office and not at town meeting. So that's just,
We've done that before, you're right. I had to go down.
this is why when Newfane votes their officers, their selectmen and their listers and things, they do it by Australian ballot, but it has to be done in a building separate from where they're holding it. That's the law. Which makes it kind of hard because
Yes, it does.
you can't talk about, during the town meeting, you can't talk about the article that is being voted on in the other building. So from the select board standpoint, you may want to separate those two things.
Well, you're correct. That and the fact that we really don't want to do this in town meeting, maybe a separate meeting. It's kind of like when we separated the school, but the school, when they joined with the WCSU, we now go have a school meeting in the town building. You know what I mean? Town meeting every March, and has saved time. And our time has gone down from when I first came on the board. We were there at 10 o'clock in the morning, and that particular meeting I got elected, we were done at 3. Yeah. Now it's 2.5 hours, and Gary's not going to let us get past 2 hours and 45 minutes. Correct, Karen? Correct.
Okay, I haven't even looked at the watch, but
We've got 6 minutes.
you want to go ahead. Everybody who wants to talk needs to know, so.
Just trying to listen to everything that everybody's saying. And I don't think I have an opinion as far as what exactly should be done. But I have 2 things. One, I would like to see if we can give more parking to the meeting hall. If we're going to eventually do this, to give some of that parking to that so that we can have, and this building is ADA, so that would be a selling point if somebody needed to rent this or whatever. Not because I know it doesn't have the sprinklers or whatever necessarily in this room. I don't see any, but
I believe there's downstairs in the window.
yeah,
They're down there.
but yeah, but the thing is, my point is, I'm trying to figure out what to do for the future of this town. And as far as younger people, I don't see a lot of younger people that are involved in this. And I don't know the people in the town enough to reach out to them to say, hey, this is going to be your town. What do you want done with it? I mean, it all belongs to the future. Mostly, we're looking at it, we're all older, we've been here and done all our stuff, whatever not. But I'm not really sure what's the best way. And I think it would be nice if we could reach out to our neighbors that are younger and bring it up to them so that the committee, so they can get their input. That's what I'm going to say.
Smart.
I just wondered if while we're doing all this analyzing stuff, all the different ways, if there's a way to come up with an average rental price if we were to rent the building. I mean, I know we tried to come up with sale prices, but I wondered about this size commercial building rental per month, what we could get on it.
Standard.
To answer your question, I have done a little bit of research on that. And for a 1-bedroom, no more than 1,000 square foot living unit, the average monthly rent ranges from $1,000 to $1,300. A 2-bedroom is $1,300 to $1,800. And there's one unit in Brattleboro I came across, I couldn't believe it. It is a brand new 1-bedroom apartment. They want $1,900 a month for that. So I've gone online, I've checked a couple of sources, and those numbers seem to keep reappearing. Really.
But Mark, did you mean aside from housing, other?
Yeah, I was thinking as it is right now,
Right.
for say
Daycare
or something commercial.
Artist.
Like like they said, we got 2,400 a month for the last renters.
Right.
Could we get that? Could we get more? Is it gonna be less? If we could maybe compare some other this size structures somewhere to see what they're getting. That's what I want to do.
David, time check, we have. So I was just gonna say, if more than one business rented this, you'd have to put in security so that they could each have their own secure area. Would that be necessary? If you have three different businesses renting this as opposed to one business, you'd have to have separate security systems, lock entries and that kind of thing.
Maybe 10 to 10 on over 10. It's possible the rental is zero. I'm not convinced. I don't know, but nobody's banging down the door right now trying to rent.
Well, we haven't put
Not
that
that
out there yet.
we haven't looked hard, but there's been some looking. There's been some looking,
Yeah.
but yeah, we don't need much. Harriet.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what time is it?
7 o'clock. So,
7 o'clock, yeah.
does everyone feel they have a chance to share what they want to share?
Could I throw just one more?
Yep.
You know, Grace Cottage up there, you got Valley Cares, and there's a demand for people looking to get senior housing. Another option.
Yeah.
Senior housing.
That's true. Aging population.
Yep.
Could be many of us, that's true.
What a good deal
That's why we're not seeing any young people here.
Anyway.
Okay, and everybody had a chance to see on a walk down the road. I would just like to say, I think this has been wonderful. An opportunity for people to gather together, share ideas, and in a civil way, lots of different ideas and opinions. This is what democracy is all about.
Amen.
Yeah.
Kudos to all of you.
Thank you, David.
All in favor? Wow, that's terrific.
Must be.
I know. Thank you. Thank you.